I'll share the screen then.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Hi everyone. Welcome to one more session of Ascent. I've named it Bringing Spirit into Science. Now, what exactly spirit means here and what exactly science means here, I will explain in a few slides. But what I feel about this topic is essentially like most of the talks in so far that I've given is where I thought drawing analogies from Vedanta and science would make things easier to understand the two fields together. But this time, what I think is what we can do is we can try uh, to do some research and get some more actual insights into how things work. Uh, Hopefully, this can become like a PhD research topic. Let's see where it goes. Uh, First, I want to begin with a story. So, in order to show, it can be done into a research problem or something. You need to show something similar that has worked before, to give motivation. So that's why this story. Uh, this person over here, when I tell his name, uh, you will become more curious to know what is the story here. So this person is actually he's Dr. C.P. Matthew. Uh, he is a Christian. So he was brought up in a Syrio-Malabar Christian family. So what is special about this person is he was brought up, brought up, and in Kerala essentially. So what's special about this person is he was one of the leading pioneering cancer surgeons of India. So he was in a very great position. He was the head of the oncology department for the entire district of Kottayam. And more than that, I guess this was one of the main highlights of his careers, where he actually pioneered and brought in various techniques to treat cancer. So he was the first one to introduce something called as brachytherapy. I don't know much about biology field, so I just did some quick research. Essentially, what this treatment is implant. It involves essentially insertion of these radioactive implants into cancerous tissue. So it's a form of chemotherapy, but where the heavy metal or the radioactive material is directly introduced into the tissue. And he was one of the first persons to do it, and it was a very successful thing. And uh, yeah, so that is one of his success storylines. Okay, so at this stage, he is the head of the department. He's around in his probably 40s or 50s. I don't remember the exact age now. He's been the head of the department. He has had great success in treating cancer. So one day, what happens is a patient comes to him with severe, I guess, like some stage 4 cancer or something, with severe cancer with severe pain. And the techniques that he had developed or whatever existed in the field of medicine at that stage, they were very grossly insufficient to treat this person. So, what he suggested the patient to do was to stop treatments and go back home and live a painless life for the next 3 months and die a bit more peacefully because there's nothing to be done. So, he sent his patient home. Now, after a few months, probably close to a year, he, through some of his contacts, he came to know this patient was very much alive, healthy, and even doing a lot of work and stuff. He was very surprised. And then he went to that patient's home. He found out that patient's address and he went to that patient's home. And he was very, very surprised to see that this patient, he did all his vitality tests, he took his heartbeat and all of that. And he was very, very surprised to see this patient was so healthy. And then when he asked this patient, how did you become so healthy? He said, there was a Siddha monk, Lada Vaidya, according to their tradition. Uh, this Siddha monk came and he gave him some traditional medicines from some herbs, made of some mixture of some herbs and don't know what else it was, some elements and things like that. And that's it. He consumed those medicines and he was healthy. So now Uh, so now most of the people at that stage of where this doctor was, like he has achieved so much in the field of medicine, cancer, and when they hear some story like this, they feel put off and they feel it's it's something else, and they wouldn't want to pursue along that way. But this doctor is different. That's why this is a very successful story. So this doctor became even more curious on how somebody who has no professional experience in medicine could treat something as big as this cancer, which modern medicine didn't have an answer to. So he asked this person where this Vaidya lives, and that person, and essentially this person doesn't stay in one place. He just roams around and he doesn't talk to people also. But still, after a few months, he just pursued it, and after a few months, he came to know where this person was going next, and then went and followed and then asked him how he treated that person. At first, this Vaidya refused to answer and he just went away. But our doctor, he was curious to know. And so even he also started roaming. So wherever the doctor who was this head of this department of oncology left everything and just started roaming around with this Vaidya wherever he went, uh, roaming around collecting herbs and other things. And essentially, the doctor learned all the basic principles of Siddha medicine. And what this doctor further went ahead and did is he combined these two techniques of allopathy and Ayurveda, and he was able to successfully treat hundreds of cases which were uh, which were impossible to be solved using that day's modern medicine principles. So, this person, Dr. C.P. Matthew, he's now known in India very well as the father of integrative medicine. So, what he has done is he has combined these two techniques of Ayurveda and allopathy. He uses um, Ayurveda herbs and medicines and concoctions with allopathic treatments like radiotherapy, chemotherapy, and other cancer treatments. And he was able to successfully cure many people's cancers very, very effectively. So, what exactly has, so I said this is this integrative technique, which I'll be talking more on. So what exactly is this integration? And this is the way I understand this integration more deeply. Uh, so if you look at modern science, or what we call as allopathy, so it's a very, very focused and objective approach of science. Uh, that is science essentially, what modern science is as of now. They define things as objective, and what it really means is it's more like a cutting tool, like a knife or a scissor. So what you do is you divide the problem into chunks and you identify case by case. You identify, for example, if you have cancer, you identify the specific cause of why that cancer came, where that cancer came, and so on. If it is cold, you identify the specific cause, like it's a virus that causes the cold. If it is some infection, it could be some fungus that is causing that infection, and so on. So you identify that specific cause which is creating the problem in the human body. And then what you do is more importantly, what you do is you use this targeted mechanisms to counteract that particular thing. So if it's a virus, you employ some drugs, you consume some drugs, medicines to counteract that particular virus. If it is some fungus, you again use some fungicidal uh, fungicidal medicine. If it is some bacteria, let's say, then you use some antibiotic, right? So you use these kind of specific targeted mechanisms to obtain specific and more importantly favorable results. Things that you want, things that you desire. You essentially want to cure that cold. So this is the way of modern science or allopathy. But if you use if you think about these indigenous science or traditional science that has existed, and this is in, so I am talking with context of India right now, but it's not really the case. There has been indigenous medicines developed in various systems. There has been indigenous medicines in in the Chinese system, uh, in the North American indigenous Indian system and so on. But right now I'm taking this case of Ayurveda here. So if you look at indigenous science like Ayurveda and Siddha medicines, uh, it's more subjective. Uh, so what I really mean by this is you observe essentially some symptoms in a very broader vision, and you use some very holistic means to achieve results. So, for example, in Ayurveda, meditation is a very big component of treatment. Now, why exactly is let's say, a mental treatment by doing meditation? So, why, if you want to understand in terms of modern allopathic science, uh, meditation is supposed to be a mental treatment there. So why exactly is a mental treatment required to cure something like common cold, right? So these kind of questions come up when you try to approach Ayurveda through the angle of allopathy, but that shouldn't be the case, uh, because Ayurveda has its own distinction, indigenous science has its own distinction, and they should be viewed through their lens. It works because you are having these holistic treatments. You have these a component of treatment in Ayurveda is not only consumption of these herbs and medicines, but it also involves these other things like meditation, yoga, oil treatments, and so on, right? So that's why I say the problem is not effectively solved by targeting something very specific, but treatment on a very broader level. So that's why that's why I call Ayurveda or these indigenous sciences as more subjective, because you don't exactly know the cause and you're not exactly addressing the cause, but you're using a more holistic approach uh, to counteract whatever is the ill effect. So what is this integration? So what is this? For example, in our case, this what this doctor was effectively able to do is he was able to borrow these concepts of Ayurveda and employ it into allopathy and use treatments of both cases, uh, and have an integrative approach in science essentially. So it's kind of like combining the subjectivities that are present in fields like Ayurveda and Ayurveda, Siddha, and other indigenous science into the objectivity of modern science. So you are kind of bringing in some subjectivity into the picture. You're combining the subjective nature of Ayurveda with the objective nature of modern science, and that's why I call this topic as spirit into science, because Ayurveda, since it deals with the subject and more with the subject, and since modern science is entirely objective, I'm calling this as bring a spirit into science. Integration. So this integration, I feel, is not simple. Simply because as soon as you start saying something like I want to bring Ayurveda in,
Pranav, your audio is not okay.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, we continue. Am I audible now?
You are audible, Pranav. Yes, you can. We can hear you.
Okay, okay, fine. Yeah, so this integration, like I was saying, when somebody says I'm trying to bring Ayurveda into allopathy, you kind of get bashed from both ends, in the sense that the allopathy people will say you're bringing some nonsense, nonsensical science into what is actual science, and you're not supposed to treat that way. And Ayurveda people will say, well, uh, it can go two ways there. So one of the Ayurveda people will say, this is what you are only right now trying using Ayurveda to understand science. The science existed a long time back already. We already knew it, and you are just trying to invent things now. And the another argument that people usually give is there is more knowledge actually in Ayurveda, and only modern science is just catching up and things like that. Uh, so you kind of get bashed from both ends. But in order to convince both, uh, you need this kind of what I call as contemporary relevance for this integration. So, what exactly do I mean is when you introduce this indigenous knowledge. So, right now, all of our education systems and everything we learn through this modern science. So, if at all you're trying to talk about indigenous science, it's most likely that you're introducing this indigenous knowledge to modern science as the integration approach. So, what is necessary when you do such kind of integration is that it must be relevant to present day situations. So, one simple example that I can give here is the example of Dr. Matthew, where he was able to successfully learn uh, these techniques of Ayurveda and bring it and bring those aspects of Ayurveda into science where things are giving some noticeable result, like curing cancer. Now, there are many aspects of Ayurveda which we feel is which we feel is not adequate enough for as a treatment. Uh, and So you need to be able to pick those specific aspects of Ayurveda which you want to combine and bring out in terms of allopathy. And the way the thing that judges it is essentially how relevant is it to the present day situation. So this is the main challenging part of this integration aspect. And is it easy? No, it is really a research problem. In this case, he was called father of integrative medicine for a reason, and that's because in order to become proficient in this integration aspect, you need to know both. You need to know medicine very well, allopathy. You need to know modern medicine very well, which is allopathy, and you need to learn aspects of indigenous medicine like Ayurveda. So so there are many things needed for this. So the first thing is you need to be very proficient in modern medicine. So if you look at Dr. CP Matthews' case, he was already an expert in the field of cancer, right? So he was an expert in that field. Then the next step is also need to learn Ayurveda or Siddha from a very learned person. If he had gone to any Ayurveda person, uh, he would just get a very he would just get a very uh, he would just get a very windowed approach into things, and he would never be able to he would never be able to experience the greatness of Ayurveda. He was able to understand and he was able to appreciate the greatness of Ayurveda only because he was able to find this very unique particular Vaidya who was who knew where the herbs were, who knew what kind of concoctions to make and everything, and he was able to successfully bring that into treating cancer, right? So that is another constraint. And finally, the most important thing of all is you need to have open-mindedness of like Dr. C.P. Matthew in order to appreciate both the science aspect of modern science and the science aspect of Ayurveda, right? So that's why it's not easy. So I like to uh, think of a person solely invested in allopathy like this kind of a racehorse. So these racehorses, if you see, they have this covering near their eyes, so that their eyes don't wander away and they're very focused on just the front path. So they're not able to see the things on the side. So modern science is in a way like this. Uh, they are very focused, but they are very unaware of other things, and they don't want to look into these other pictures as well. They're like very cut off from their focused path. So that's why it's like this blinkered horse. Whereas the other person who solely just believes in Ayurveda and doesn't approach modern science at all in life, I feel he's like this sleeping cocoon. So there is so much potential if the cocoon just transformed into a butterfly, but he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to approach modern science because of some experience or some line of thought that person has. For example, in the US, there are a lot of people who don't want to get vaccinated because they feel vaccines somehow ruin their body. So things like that. Uh, so it's very, very essential that you are not this focused racehorse who's not able to see any other thing. And also, you're not like this sleeping cocoon who doesn't want to transform into a beautiful butterfly, right? So, this is what is necessary for this integration. You need to be very open-minded, and you need to be able to bring in relevant science and apply it to to the present day situations. So all now like all throughout right now during this talk, I was talking about this field of medicine where things have been integrated to a certain extent. uh, Medicine has been integrated with Ayurveda, but my favorite topic is physics. So, is there something we can do here? Is what I was thinking for some time. And I think we can do something here. So, what I think is is this dichotomic approach to physics from the modern science perspective in the indigenous perspective with essentially some aspects of astrology. So, what exactly do I mean here? Uh, so, if you look at astrology, uh, why I picked this field is if you go back into the past and you look at all our ancient day physics that actually corresponds to modern day physics, like what happens during an eclipse. The earth revolves around the sun, right? The earth revolves around the sun was figured out much before than when the Europeans figured out that the earth moved around the sun. uh, and then other aspects of astronomy like binary stars and things like that. So people in Europe or Western science. So just to give you an example, In Western science, in the science that we learn now, there's something called as a binary star system, where one star essentially goes around another star. So these two stars are moving around each other. Now it's practically impossible to observe a binary star system without a telescope because they are too close to each other and they appear as though they're like a single star. And it's exactly like your car headlights. So let's say you're going along the road and there is some car that is approaching you. In the distance, it looks like one single yellow light, but when it comes further, closer and closer towards you, they look like two headlights, right? That's because when it's very far, you are not able to differentiate between the two of them. In the same way, when these two stars revolve around each other, they're actually very close. And so you are not able to differentiate. So if you just look naked, if you just look into the sky with your naked eyes, you won't be able to differentiate. You need something very powerful like a big telescope or something to actually differentiate and say that there are two stars. But the surprising part is when you have two stars, they move slightly differently when compared to a single star. And our ancient Indians, they were actually able to figure this one out, that the path that this two-star system followed was slightly different. And they were able to figure out that it's actually because of two stars that are revolving around each other as opposed to one single star. And they were the first binary star system was actually called Vasishta and Arundhati. So, uh, so these aspects of astronomy, the science that they found out is very appreciative. And if you look at all of these scientists, right, the most foremost scientist that comes to my mind is actually this person, Varahamihira. But if you look at all of these astronomers of ancient India, they always talk about two things simultaneously. One is astrology, and the other one is astronomy. So these two topics are never separated out. But if you look at what is happening today, we take the astronomy part as science, but astrology part is shoved into the indigenous science regime where we don't pay much attention to it. It also makes sense because just like Ayurveda, what has happened to the astrology part is a lot of knowledge has been lost, and more importantly, uh, we don't have practitioners of astrology anymore. Uh, we don't have very solid science of how to practice astrology. So, which is why it's gone into this very pseudoscience regime. But what gives me hope that there is something to be learned from astrology is essentially the presence of these kind of scientists, right? When somebody like Varahamihira can write a treatise on astronomy. It's called Pancha Siddhantika, where he has explained all astronomy principles, and it is very much appreciated even now. So when a person like Varahamihira can write so maturely about astronomical concepts, that same person has also written even more brilliantly when it comes to astrological concepts, right? So if there is a person who is practicing both together, there must be some connection between them, because why would you practice something that you believe is completely science and then practice something else that you believe completely as pseudoscience? So that seems a bit counterintuitive to me, and so that's why I feel there is some connection between these two. So this is coming to this research topic now. So what can we actually do here right now? So the first thing that we can do is, we can go through these two books more closely. I've actually tried to go through Brihat Samhita of Varahamihira, but uh, the thing with all of these subjects is while you have an abundance of resources to confirm astronomy now, You have telescopes, uh, you have this huge telescopes, you have a lot of literature that actually says how things work, and you can confirm what Varahamihira has said through all of these instruments today. So you can confirm the astronomy aspect of it very clearly. But what is lacking on the other side is somebody like this Lada Vaidya, who the doctor was fortunate enough to meet. We need somebody who is very competent enough in the field of astrology. And this is a very rare phenomena. I don't know who that is. We need to learn astrology from such kind of competent people, not from a random book. If you just blindly go through the translations of Brihat Samhita, even the Sanskrit translations of Brihat Samhita, you kind of entirely miss the point of how it works as science. So this is what is lacking. So as a starting research problem, what you can do is we can try to uh, find some small connection by going through and looking at Brihat Samhita more closely. But yeah, I think this question mark is the main unresolved problem. And if we find this, then things will be more clear. Yeah, I guess that's it. Questions?
Pranav, can you switch off the screen?
Yes.
Screen share, you can see. Yeah, you started with wonderful story of integrative medicine.
Yeah.
Then you brought astrology and astronomy,
Yes.
but you didn't define science and spirit. What is spirit for you and what is science for you?
Yeah. So science and
Science is
spirit
objective.
is
What
objective,
is
and
spirit? Spirit is
so
subjective.
I know you will say spirit is objective and subjective, but for now, spirit is subjective.
Okay. So, mhm, when we speak of integrity or holistic,
Yes.
the objective and subjective becomes one domain. It's not
Yes.
two domains, right? That's
Yeah.
what you mean by that.
Yeah. That is the true science that I say.
That's true science. So
Yes.
now, okay. So you outlined what are the analogies you gave.
Yeah.
The question here is now, how do you, let us say, as a scientist, how do you go about this science and
Yeah.
spirit?
So that's what I was. That's why I gave this research problem.
Yeah.
The first thing is to identify. It's a very big challenge. It's an even harder research problem than getting PhD or something in physics, because now you not only need PhD in physics, you need PhD in astrology also. So, and that is not the worst. That is not the worst thing actually. There are many fundamental problems. The first fundamental problem is finding itself which indigenous knowledge can be borrowed and be more relevant into modern science. So Ayurveda is one aspect, which Ayurveda is an aspect which has been traditionally, if you look at other indigenous knowledges like Indian science and so on, Ayurveda is much more present in today's society. It's been practiced much more. The texts of the texts have not been as lost. And while many of these medicines and so on have been lost, there is still some hope to it. And more importantly, there are still some very good practitioners of Ayurveda, like this Lada Vaidya monk who was there. But when it comes to astrology, we don't have any of these. Uh, Most of the people who practice nowadays I'll say, okay, at least most of the people I have met are part-timers. They do astrology as a part-time profession there because it doesn't give so much money. Most of them are essentially software engineers or whatever. Uh, and they don't practice, and most importantly, for in the doctor's case, right? The first thing that actually captured the doctor's attention was a proof live example of a cured person, right? So you need some live examples of how astrology is working as a science. That is how it is. That is why that contemporary relevance that I mentioned is very, very important. You need to show that something is actually working, and that something that is working is unexplainable with the present tools that you have. With the present physics that you have, you're not able to explain some of these concepts, but you are able to understand them better in a different approach. So this is what is needed. So so the first thing is, the first thing is, in the case of the doctor, it was shown that Ayurveda can have some effects in medicine that allopathy doesn't. And so he was able to bring in Ayurvedic. So the problem was, the unique problem was very much identified. It was cancer. And allopathic treatments, the doctor knew, whereas Ayurvedic treatments the doctor didn't know, and it was exposed to the doctor through a very abled practitioner of Ayurveda. Now the problem with physics is you don't know that particular problem itself. Like you can't pinpoint, like cancer, which area of physics, uh, can indigenous sciences help more. Right now I am sitting here on a hunch, and I am saying it is astronomy simply because of all the ancient texts and ancient knowledge that we have had as of now. So I am sitting here, and on a hunch I am saying it is astronomy, and on a hunch I am saying astrology and astronomy, since they since they went hand in hand, when 6th century, 7th century, 8th, 9th, 10th century Indian philosophers uh, actually explored, the astronomy and astrology went hand in hand. And so that's why I'm sitting here on a hunch and saying uh, concepts from astrology could be borrowed into astronomy. But it's a very, very far approach. It's a stone's throw. That's why this is the first step of the research problem, identifying the problem. So,
So,
and you take a hypothesis and you take a hunch, and you say, uh, well, this area is insufficient and it could be filled in. There is gaps in knowledge and it could be filled in from this side. And so then the next step is to actually learn astrology from a very abled person. So that's the next part. So, and see if anything can be put and understood in today's relevant context. So that's why it's an even more challenging problem than Ayurveda. And yeah, it's even more challenging.
so Pranav, here you picked up astrology and astronomy as a subject, as a
Ye-
topic for yeah, right? Now, is it of
yes.
your interest or you just give as an analogy? Because you come
So
from condensed matter physics, more closely it will be Vaisheshika system of philosophy, maybe more relevant to condensed matter physics. Is that some reason you took astrology and astronomy?
yeah, because I don't know why, when I was small as well, like let's say when I was in 10th, 11th, and 12th, probably. I found it strange. I don't know about these other philosophies. I haven't heard of that. But I found it very, very strange because Indian present day physics, if you look at through the lens of the present day physics, Indians have been extremely, extremely successful at astronomy. Even without the use of, like I gave you in the example, even without the use of telescopes, because our forefathers have observed the night sky a lot more, and they have written records of these things. So I was always fascinated. Why would a guy like Varahamihira, who has written so much and so beautifully on science, ever put his head into astrology? Like when it's a pseudoscience, why would he ever do that in his life? And this problem was there in the back of my mind, and I even bought this book, Brihat Samhita, I bought two books actually, Brihad Samhita and Laghu Siddhanta of Varahamihira. I tried reading this. This was when I knew some reasonable amount of Sanskrit, so I was able to translate a few shlokas on my own. The English translation I found was a very gross uh, misjudgment of what the text actually contained. But I was able to read some more text. I was able to convert the Sanskrit directly, but like I said, all of these. So when it, like you say, when experience is subjective, you need the presence of a master. So all of these, I feel it's a subjective experience. The science is a subjective experience in the sense that if you look at Ayurveda, uh, you don't exactly know like in you don't pinpoint what exactly is the problem. You don't pinpoint it's a virus. You say it is an imbalance of kapha and all of these other things, and you treat it like that. So if you look at chemistry, modern chemistry for example, you have elements, but astrology treats it differently, or other sciences treat it differently. The elements are uh, like water, space, earth, air, and fire, right? So you can't approach this through the science lens. That's why I say it's a more holistic understanding. Like, why exactly does meditation help to cure cold? Don't know, but it works somehow. Meditation helps in curing cancer. Don't know, but it works somehow. Right. So these techniques can't be just read through textbooks and knowledge gained from there. It has to be given out from a traditional practiced person, and it should be brought out that way. That is the only way to learn these things. It has to come out from the presence of another realized master of Ayurveda, let's say. So we don't have, I mean, at least I haven't found anybody in astrology yet. So yeah,
So, is this a topic of your research, integrative physics,
right
in
now,
the
no.
postdoctoral research?
No, no, not in the postdoctoral research. But it's something, so it's something that has been in the back of my mind for some time. I
Mhm.
actually got more inspiration on what these, on how to view. So I was again like viewing. So one conception that I had when I was reading through through these books was I was again trying to approach these topics through the lens of modern science. And one thing that I realized very recently was maybe that is not the correct approach. Indigenous sciences, like I said, have to be viewed through its own lens, in the sense that it's a subjective, holistic experience. So for it to work, you need to go through those practices. So you need to go through those techniques, and you need to learn it from these kind of people for it to work in whatever way it is working. I guess as soon as you approach these problems through the lens of modern science, you're cutting and saying why meditation should work and things like that. As soon as you cut and dissect Ayurveda, I feel Ayurveda loses its beauty. Similarly, in the same way, if you approach astrology by cutting and saying by cutting and saying, well, this planet over here, Venus, is affecting you more because of gravity, and you try to bring in some science concepts, some modern science concepts into it, and you try to approach astrology from that part, I don't think it's going to work. So you need, so that's why I don't like these explanations of people when they say Ayurveda works because and then they give some scientific answer and say, well, it is affecting, these medicines are affecting some cell or mitochondria or whatever, and an approach like that for justifying modern science of astro in the field of astrology, you say the gravitational forces are affecting it, so and so way. I don't think that is the right approach, because that will end up only annoying both of them. So I feel indigenous science has to be looked through its own lens because it's a subjective approach. And more importantly, what is needed to understand subjective sciences is a person who has been a master in that field. So this is the main lacking point we have. Uh, in Ayurveda, there is still some people who continue to practice it, astrology, and I don't know. Yeah, that's my standing.
Okay,
So,
wonderful,
like,
Prince.
so to answer your question, whether it will be my serious research project, no, as of now, no. But if I do get some more similar insights, and if I feel something can be established, definitely yes. It will be in the back of my mind. It will, like I said, it will take time, and research is like that. It takes time, lifetimes probably. But
Okay.
maybe this talk serves as a groundwork for someone else to deep dive in and pursue this topic. Who knows?
Wonderful, Pranav. Thank you very much. Shravan, you want to
Thank
ask something?
Uh, just as a input to you, Pranav,
Yeah.
uh, you might have heard of one Bangalore Venkatraman, B.V. Raman,
Okay.
a leading astrologer who has taken a scientific view of astronomy, the effects of uh, planets, and the individual approaches. There are two basic things. One is more based on individual responses, and other one based on the astronomical responses on astrology.
Mm.
And he has integrated these two, and
Okay.
he has done uh, more closer, scientific approach of integrative. So, from what you're talking, I thought you might look into it because he was working on this astronomy astrology combination, and is also more scientific and a very recent person, in fact.
Okay.
Okay.
He is no longer there. He is not there. He has passed away.
Okay.
Yeah, he passed away. B.V. Raman Institute of Science, Institute of Astrology, or whatever. I think it is there in
Okay.
Bangalore. Yeah,
Okay.
so you can. It's a fairly documented aspect.
See,
So,
higher. Yes, Shravan, go ahead. B. Raman is no longer there. Yeah.
yeah. So, but if you look at the topic that you are looking at, you have named, uh, the Ayurveda as subjective, but I don't think it is. That's also
Okay.
see, the subjective is a very difficult thing to explain. Uh,
Mm.
you can say probably, anything to do with uh, spirituality is subjective. But
Mm.
I don't know. I'll ask Prabhuji, is it really subjective? Because nothing can be known of subject. It is the
Actually,
effects of objects on subject, right? So,
basically, Ayurveda and Vedanta or Indian darshanas, they're all integrative
correct,
science. So
correct,
basically, there's a philosophical basis for all these sciences.
correct.
It's an integrative approach where mind, matter, and spirit together are addressed. It's more of a, I won't say subjective, it is an integrated approach, holistic approach compared to a fragmented approach of modern science.
Okay.
So this is actually basically it comes from the view of entire world or anything. Everything is a one whole. From that perspective, Ayurveda comes. Whereas
Correct.
science comes from the perspective of this objective and subjective.
Correct. Dualistic. Yeah.
Dualistic. So dualistic philosophy forms the basis of science, whereas the what you call as oneness or non-duality forms the basis of many of the Indian systems, including astrology and astronomy. So what is astronomy? Astronomy is objective reality. Astrology is subjective states of consciousness. So now the view, a non-dualistic view looks at this as one whole, subject and object as whole. So that way, the basis for many of the indigenous systems of knowledge the philosophy of non-duality or oneness forms the foundation. I would call it as more of a integrative approach rather than a subject-object approach.
Okay. So what you are
So
saying is most of the ancient uh, Indian science is already integrative.
it integrates. So for example, I'll take the astrology and astronomy.
Mm,
If you say astrology starts out there,
mm,
and the astronomy starts out there, astrology is what's happening within.
mm,
So I would say yat brahmande tat pindande. What is happening in macrocosm happens in the microcosm and the vice versa.
mm,
In modern day science view, the universe is hologram. So every part of the universe reflects the other part. So that
mm.
way, subjective and objective, there's a correlation or maybe correspondence. So that way, probably I would say, many of the indigenous systems are much more well advanced than the modern day sciences in terms of
Okay.
integrative approach.
Okay. Okay. So the other point that I wanted to tell you, Pranav, is more than allopathy. Ayurveda, both allopathy and homeopathy generated came up in almost the same space in Europe. Okay, a lot of uh, you know a lot of allopathy or the modern medicine came from Europe, and even homeopathy came from Europe. And homeopathy was more like, if you can call it subjective, which is they try to look at the effects of something similar, looks like similar, and therefore the effect of, if a particular herb had certain effect on a person, then they feel that that very effect can be counter used, and can be cured. So as one thing can be cured by something similar to it. That's what Hahnemann's principle is. And it is not as objective as allopathy, right? In fact, one of the problems that homeopathy has with science today is their titrations are so much that they try to concentrate, or rather titrate a medicine so much that in one aspect of medicine you may not even have uh, even an Avogadro's number. If you look at, not one of the original molecule may be there in the medicine as you kept on titrated, but the power increased uh, very highly. So that is something that allopathists just can't understand, and they say all this is humbug. It's only homeopathy is only a case of uh, what they typically call uh, a fluke or whatever. So, and there's a lot of debate going on there. Yet, what is happening is nobody wanted to integrate these things there also, because the effect of understanding integration there is so difficult. Here, okay, in one or two cases, maybe somebody could have integrated this, but the economic effect and the social effect of trying to integrate homeopathy and allopathy, and people have tried to look at it, was simply, it was a failure. So they just left it as these two. So you may have to, and there's all this is documented again. This aspect is also documented, and you may get more information about how this integrative approach was uh, earlier tried in these two cases, a very classical case, and still it didn't work. There are books on it, and you can look at it.
Yeah, that's why one of my main aspects of integrating, and why I'm saying it's extremely hard coming from a background of science, is because it needs to have. That's why I stressed on this contemporary evidence. You need to show something is really working first in order to bring it in order to integrate it. And that is not the only thing. It has to be something that will work in contemporary fields, in the contemporary field. And not only that thing, it should be something that is not explainable by the contemporary field as well.
Exactly.
So,
See,
so,
in this
so
case,
now the
we know that
reason why the
homeopathy
reason,
works.
yes,
Both of them agree, but they can't explain.
no, so so in fact, for me, if they are explainable, then there is something, then there is a problem with homeopathy. Uh, the that is why I said Ayurveda and all of these things, if you try to bring science into it, it will fail. uh, if you say planets are affecting you through some gravitational pull and things like that, it will fail. If you try to say Ayurveda works because it is affecting some cells and some particular aspect of a cell, it will fail. Because as soon as you do that, you're objectifying Ayurveda and looking at the objective part of it. As soon as you say that to astrology, you are objectifying astrology and you're bringing only the objective part of it. Science has always tried to look at things. Modern science, the way it works is you break it down and pinpoint the problem and say this factor is relevant enough to affect that problem, and so that is why things are working. This is how science works. This is not the way to approach these indigenous topics. If you That's why I kept saying, if you ask me why meditation works for treating common cold, science will outright reject it and say that is not the way. All you need to do is take this tablet for 2 3 days and it will work, right? But that is not the way Ayurveda works. We don't exactly know the reason why meditation works in curing something as big as cancer also, let's say, instead of common cold, right? We don't know why exactly it works, and that is the beauty of it. So that is the subjective part of things, where things are not able to be understood, yet it works because it's bringing infine if I were to use this term, the holistic aspect of it is to bring in the universal aspect of things into the picture, right? The very definition of bringing universal aspect of things into the picture tells you that you can't understand it. If universe can be understood, then it's objective. The subjective part is universal aspects can't be understood, but it can somehow be experienced by that person and brought into it. This is the subjective part. If you try to objectify Ayurveda and things, it will definitely fail because science is a bigger cutting tool present there. It's like saying I am going to use a small aspect of some cutting tool and say that this science persists. No, because science is the biggest cutting tool we have in this world. Science objectifies things in a very more mature way than any of these indigenous philosophies do. The power in the indigenous philosophy is bringing the subjective picture into the science, which science will never fail. Will science will always fail to see, because the way science works is to cut open things and measure. To look at things in a holistic, universal way has not been taught into science. That is the part that we want to bring into science. So if you, as soon as you try to rationalize Ayurveda or rationalize astrology, it fails. That is why all of these things have failed. That is why it doesn't work in the West, because West doesn't inherently doesn't have the concept of subjectivity. West inherently doesn't have the concept of universality and other things. These systems have prevailed in India, and that's why there is ground for homeopathy, there is ground for Ayurveda, there's ground for Siddha medicine, because we somehow in some way still understand the subjective part of things, that the universality aspect of things is still somehow understood by us, which is why these subjects has gotten a ground for us. That is the part we should be looking at. So if you, that's why I said not to view these subjects through the lens of modern science. As soon as you try to rationalize things and say, well, gravity is affecting me, and so gravity also affects the planets, and so planet's gravity is affecting me, and that's why astrology works. No, that won't work, because that is not the right explanation. If it was the right explanation, everybody would be using astrology now. Nobody uses it, right? A similar thing with Ayurveda. We have a common cold. We don't go to an Ayurvedic surgeon or a Ayurvedic practitioner. We go to a hospital where they treat you with medical drugs. As soon as we feel sick, we go to a hospital and they take some ECG and whatever it is, right? We trust those methods more, no matter how much we say Ayurveda works. We trust those methods more. If I trusted Ayurveda more, I would have gone to an Ayurvedic practitioner every time I had something, right? So that is why I said this integration is an even bigger challenge, because we need some person who is very much objectively trained, like this doctor. He was one of the leading surgeons of India at that time, cancer surgeons. We need his expertise, and we need the other side also to have equal expertise. This Vaidya physician, he was able to, and that's why a live example was shown. A live example came out because the doctor who is on top of his science knew that modern science didn't have an answer to it. At the same time, this Lada Vaidya, who was able to use his Ayurvedic approach, showed that something can be cured which modern science didn't have an answer to. That is how you were able to integrate these two. That is how he was able to integrate these two. So you need to be at the top of your game in the science aspect and in the indigenous examples. Somewhere you lack, you won't be able to explain both, and you will fail the integration.
Okay.
Okay.
Anybody on Zoom has a question? Okay, there are no questions from Zoom. We'll conclude today's session, Pranav.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So I would say,
Thank you, Pranav.
Yes.
objective approach of science is a small part of the holistic approach.
Yes, I agree.
So in that sense, integration is more rather than integration, fitting into the holistic picture is maybe a better approach.
Okay.
Because it is a different worldviews,
Yes.
views of things, right? The holistic picture has a bigger view of the world.
Yes.
But it may not be amenable to the objective results which scientists are accustomed to.
Okay.
So that's why you took, I'm sure you took the case of healing the cancer, because it's objectively verifiable, both science and Ayurveda.
Yes, that is how it is contemporary.
Yeah, that's how we're contemporary. But that becomes very difficult and hazy when it comes to astrology, because
That's why
now more dimensions are coming.
no, it's more like I guess the problem is more like so if you look at modern terms, if you look at modern science, give me an if you look at modern science, uh, it becomes more and more gray as uh, as you go from biology, as you move away from mathematics to biology, in the sense that mathematics is a very well defined, there are very well defined principles. Physics, it's more mathematical. You're trying to explain the worldview through some certain very defined, you're objectifying more and more essentially as you go from biology to mathematics. Mathematics is the most objective thing out there because things can't be changed there. Biology, so there's some subjectivity involved because you don't exactly know how things are working within you. So there's some amount of subjectivity, not empiricity, like what science claims these days. So this is one of the things why in physics it makes things even harder when you're trying to integrate physics as opposed to integrating medicine. Yeah, but it's a challenge and it's a nice problem to work on. Why else are scientists there if not
Okay.
finding new methods?
Wonderful, Pranav.
Uh,
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining. If nobody has any other question on Zoom, let us close the session today. Hari Om.